I think this was Mr. Brown's father's office.
Up here? Was it? Oh.
Paul Brown, wonderful guy.
And he started the business, right?
Well, he and Charlie Edwards.
Right.
There were two of them.
And that is
They had the
Judy White's
father.
father. That's right. I didn't realize that for the longest time. And she said,
Nice
"Oh,
guy.
I spent a lot of time here."
Yeah, he was a nice guy. He and Mr. Brown were. This was a Chrysler dealership. And of course, Chrysler went out of business. I mean, and so David built that, and this was vacant for years. And I'll tell the story. If he asked me that, I'll tell the story. But I was actually over there.
We'd love to hear it.
Cynthia Dole had come to me for the Bryan Foundation to contribute to the Children's Museum on 200 block of South End. And I told her, no, we won't support that because, one, you don't want to put a children's museum in a 3-story building with no parking. She got furious with me, and she was a wonderful person, by the way, just wonderful. So one day I was over, I don't want to repeat all this, but I was over there getting my car serviced. It's raining. So I said, David, what are you going to do with this building? He said, it's for sale. So I called Melanie. That's how it got started. So, and it turned out great. The great thing about it was Jerry Hyman had given them that building. And that's why they were using it, because they couldn't afford to buy one. So then the luck of it, then the Triad Stage was in a market for one. So they bought it. I think they paid them $450,000. And so they were able to use that money to start the rehab of this. So that's the story. That's a great story.
It's a great story. It's pretty brilliant.
And the location is just like our baseball stadium, because we had planned on putting the baseball stadium down South Elm Street, across Lee Street, now Gateway Boulevard. And there was some opposition. Some folks said we were taking money from poor people and putting it in a baseball stadium, which was bull crap. But anyhow, then we moved up here. And this was perfect. That was not perfect, but we were doing it to help the community. So this turned out, great location.
What did Melanie and them think? I'm sorry, when they saw it for the first time, that day they met you over here?
She said, let's do it.
Really? Right?
She said this would be perfect.
Even with the leaks?
Well, you had to, obviously you were going to spend some money rehabbing it, but if you look at all the property, and so I don't want to open up a bad sore, but I think it's unfortunate that the carousel's not down there. Yeah. And Mike Weaver is too.
I know.
And he got furious.
Yeah.
So some things work, some don't.
Yeah. Well, it was so visionary for you to find this piece and recognize that this is the type of facility we needed to have, and the location right across from the library and the history museum.
Well, and also thanks to Mr. Bryan to have the money to buy it.
Yes.
I tell people that all the time. They say, that you had a great idea. I said, Mr. Bryan still lives. And he made it possible for us to do some things, just like the law school. And just like the baseball stadium. Without Mr. Bryan, you can have all the good ideas in the world. If you don't have some money, And see, the wonderful thing about this place is, and a nonprofit debt is terrible. And we didn't have any debt. They didn't have any debt because we bought it, paid cash for it. Then they had the cash down here, and then they raised a little more cash and were able to open the building without any debt. That's huge.
That's the best possible scenario. That is.
And so the building, you know, is flexible, and that was good because that building down there, it would have been dead within 2 years because nobody would have had a place to park. People coming to recreate don't like parking decks.
No.
So
It works great with all the strollers and kids and buses unloading.
and too, the community is going to grow to the community center, to the children's museum, because you know David has sold that property now to his son-in-law, I think, and they have plans to develop it.
Oh, that's exciting.
So then you got the library and the historical museum, and everything sort of makes sense. Wouldn't have made sense down there. Cynthia finally forgave me. She was mad at me. She wouldn't speak to me for a while. And did you ever know her?
I did.
Wonderful
Delightful.
person.
I had an opportunity.
She started the Community Foundation. And she came to see Roger Soules and me. I was head of First Home at the time. She said, you know, we should have started this 10 years ago. This was a long time ago. So Roger was president. I was the treasurer. And we said, we got to have $600,000 cash or you can't open it. So we raised $600,000. So the Community Foundation opened up without any debt. And that was her idea.
She was amazing.
Just, huh?
She was amazing. Several people said in their interviews, you never said no to Cynthia Doyle. You may be the one person who did.
She didn't like it. But, because I told her I was very blunt. Not blunt, but I was very straight with her. Mr. Bryan used to hate the word candid. He's, you know, people say to you, candidly speaking. And he'd say, don't say that, because that means that you're not always candid with me. You know, just tell people what you think. So, and in the business that I've had the privilege of being in for 22 years now, that's important. And you got to tell people, no, that's one, we don't think that'll work, or no, that's not our cause, or no, we're not going to invest in a building that we don't think fits. So it's been a great, and it makes you think about it. The baseball stadium, I mean, this is self-serving, but the baseball stadium is moving towards 6 million people to go through the turnstiles. And Roy Carroll will tell you point blank that he is doing all the stuff that he's doing because Center City Park, and I'll tell you a quick story on that. Mike Weaver and I were in Ireland with Dean Smith and a couple others of us. And Mike and I were taking a walk around Dublin, downtown Dublin, because we were getting ready to leave that day. And we walked around this beautiful park in downtown Dublin, and I said, Mike, we need one of these in downtown Greensboro. And he said, all right, well, let's go do one. So we came back and hired Jim Roach. Did you know Jim?
I grew up with Jim Roach.
Wonderful guy. And we hired him as a third party and said, go buy that block. Don't tell anybody who you represent. He bought it. It cost us $6 million. Now here again, without Mr. Bryan, now and Mr. Weaver, we wouldn't have had. Mike put in $1.5 million, and the Bryan Foundation put in $4.5 million. So we had that property. We got the property in. The park was the beginning, and then Roy will tell you that he did Center Point because of Center City Park. And now he's getting ready to announce a $140 million building in front of the baseball stadium. So Mr. Bryan is still alive. If he'd have given all that money to family members, we wouldn't be sitting here today. You know, people don't, you know, and everybody likes to be remembered. So.
Those are true legacies, though.
It is. You know, look at Bryan Park.
It's incredible. What was the first project you did with Bryan Foundation? Do you remember?
Yeah, we spent, the first project, we spent a lot of money with the public schools. We hired CCL and did a leadership training, cost us $6 million. We put 600 of their people through 3 weeks of training at CCL. And I would tell you that it didn't do what we wanted it to do simply because most of those people used it to put on their resume to go get other jobs. That isn't what we had in mind. It is not. You know, lots of corporations all over the world send people to CCL for a week. We sent school people there for 3 weeks. And a lot of them are working in other places. They're better people, but they're working in other places. And there's no way we could have put a restriction on it.
No.
We couldn't say you got to stay here 5 years, 3 years, or 10 years. But that was probably this was probably you're celebrating 20th anniversary.
Yep.
All right, this was probably one of the first physical capital projects we did, because we opened in 1995. No, 1997. So when did the
99. We opened in 99.
Okay, so
And
this was probably one of the first.
I didn't realize that.
And back in those days, you know, I don't want it to sound like it sounds, we had lots of money. We don't have as much money now. We're taking on this thing down in Randolph County. Whew, it's a hole in the ground we're pouring money in.
But eventually.
Well, we hope. I was talking to some people of the state today, and that's why I had to miss this meeting. We got $50 million laying on the ground down there. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Giving us an overview of what the 1990s was like here in Greensboro.
Well, the 1990s was a pretty dark area for Greensboro in the fact that when we couldn't see it coming, but we lost a lot of textile corporate headquarters. We lost a lot of furniture companies, and we lost the region, not just Greensboro, but we lost 90,000 jobs net within about an 8-year period. And so we were reeling. And that's one of the things that if you look at Mr. Bryan, even at 99, he was concerned about what was going to happen to Greensboro. And so he could not foresee, he died in 95, he couldn't foresee what was going to happen to us. Who would have ever thought Burlington Industries, the largest textile company in the world, with 120,000 employees in 80 different plants all over the world, would end up being a shopping center. So that was not a very happy period. And also, if you go back, in those days, water was a major concern. And we were still working feverishly to do the Randleman Lake, which, you know, it took us 40 years to get that. 40 years. And so then, actually, the reason I ran for city council in 1969 was to build a sewer treatment plant. And we were actually, this community was actually on a moratorium for 6 years. We could not hook up anybody new because our sewer treatment plants were at capacity. So I actually ran an ad in the Greensboro News and Record with a headline. It said, "Greensboro stinks." Won a national award for that ad. I didn't do the ad, an advertising people did. But that was the reason I ran on a sewer platform. And because as unpleasant as a sewer treatment plant is, without it, a community is dead. And we were dead. And plus the fact, about 30% of our community on a summer night, and I grew up there on Ashburn Street, which is now Martin Luther King. We couldn't sleep with your windows open because of the smell from South Buffalo Treatment Plant. Now, you're not going to believe this, but the South Buffalo Treatment Plant is where Barber Park is. And it is now the most beautiful section because Gateway Gardens is there. It's the most beautiful place in our town. It used to be a sewer treatment plant. We closed it. And then we built the Metro sewer plant, which is now the Tom Osborne sewer plant. He told a cute little story when he retired. He said, the mayor has a building named after him, and I now have a sewer treatment plant named after me. And he said, I'm prouder of the sewer treatment plant because I know what comes out of my place has been treated. You get that? What comes out of the city hall has not been treated. So I always thought that was he was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. And I think he was a genius. He knew where every manhole cover was in this town. So that was what we were facing, and the truth of the matter is we're still facing it. We've lost a lot of jobs, and we haven't replaced them. We're getting ready, and we're doing some things. The airport is prone to be a big generator for us, and of course we hope the mega site will be a big. Our poster child on that is Greenville and BMW. There are 48,000 jobs relative to that plant in Greenville. So, and Mr. Milliken, who was Milliken Textile, he was big in textiles, but he saw what was happening, and he's the one that led the efforts to get BMW in. And we've never been able to get that because, one, we never had a site, and the legislature wouldn't be competitive on the incentives. So now we've got both of those, and hopefully it will work. I lay at bed at night sometimes, hope the car industry hasn't peaked and they're not expanding as they were 10, 15 years ago. But Mr. Bryan used to say, get all the options you can, don't give any. Now, get all the options you can. Well, if you don't have a site, you don't get any. If you don't have, if you don't create a children's museum, you don't have one. So, some good things are really happening in Center City. Roy Carroll will tell you that he's and around the stadium, that construction, to show you how important this is, going back to my city life, that property, including the baseball stadium, see, there's no public money. There's not a dime of public money in that stadium, which makes us really unusual. Most communities, High Point's city council's got $30 million in their stadium. Hello. It generates right at $2 million a year for tax income to the city and the county. And the important thing about that is that they don't have to do anything. They don't have to add another street. They don't have to hire another employee. They don't have to create any different stuff because it's there with what was there. And what was there was a dilapidated, rundown, not the county was using the old Burlington Industries headquarters for their public health department. So it was non-income producing. We better get on to doing this because I got to go somewhere else.
Going back to, can you just paint us a picture of downtown? There was no children's museum. The library was back over where Elon is. The Cultural Arts Center wasn't quite here yet.
It was the Daily News.
Yeah, it was the Daily News.
Tom Osborne and I, we're not trying to take credit for everything. Tom Osborne and I did that. The old King Cotton Hotel was on the corner of Market and Davie. It was really a nice hotel in its day. But it had fallen into the hands of the Agapians. The Agapians were Greensboro's slumlord. And it was presenting a problem, crime, and etc. And the Daily News had actually bought a piece of property out on 421 South. And I said, we can't let the Daily News move out of town. Now they're going to. But so we went to them and worked out a deal where we traded them their existing newspaper office, and that's the Cultural Arts Center, for the property that the O. Henry Hotel was on. And we gave them some incentives of about $2 million, and they built their offices there. And we turned that in to the Cultural Arts Center.
So the downtown was not the place it is now. What was it like then?
Well, it just all of a sudden in the 70s, while I was mayor, because we actually did a plan to put a semi-mall on all of Elm Street, and we were going to close Elm Street, which I still think they should. And we were going to put a semi-roof over it, and then you'd have to use Green Street and Davie Street to go around, but you could get to the, and that's when it was still retail. So between about 71 and 73, everybody moved out. They were all vacant stores. Belks and Tallheimers and Myers and all that. So we had to scramble and hopefully do some things. Well, a mistake, we made mistakes. We put in a semi-mall where we put all those curbs and all that kind of stuff. That was a waste of money. And it didn't work. People vote with their feet. And you need to be in touch with that. Don't try to make them go somewhere where they don't want to go. And that's what we were trying to do. So, and there was almost no housing. And then Roger Souls and I came up with the idea of doing Greensboro Court. Greensboro Court was the first new housing kind of project in downtown Greensboro. You ever been in Greensboro Court?
Oh, where's that at?
300 block of Elm Street. We took we bought all those things. Jefferson put up 60% of the money. First Home put up 40% of the money. That was long before this foundation. I was still with First Home. And but we were 90% finished, and I was in bed one night, and a phone rang about 12 o'clock, and it said, "Mr. Melvin, you better get down here. I think your project is burning up." And it did. A homeless person got in there and started the fire, and it cost us $5 million to replace what burned up. We lost our rear end on that project. And to Jefferson, it was a peanut. To us, it was a major hit because First Home was not anywhere near as big as Jefferson. But it's turned out to be an extremely successful project. And Mike Weaver now owns it. I kid him. I said, "You always buy things when they make money, and I buy things when they lose money." But that was the first try to get some people to live back downtown.
Coming back to this, what was your first interaction with the Children's Museum when it was on Elm Street, I believe? What was your first interaction there with them? When did you first learn about it?
About what?
The Children's Museum.
Well, it was sometime after 97. So whenever they bought whenever Jerry Hyman gave them that building, that would have been the date. And then it was probably 6 months or maybe even a year before, because Cynthia was still trying to raise money to do that. And that was another thing. She had raised some additional money, which allowed them to have more than the purchase price, the sales price of the building. So I would say it was probably 98 or 99.
Mm. What was your first impression when you saw the building on Elm Street?
Well, the one that the Tri-Stage is in now?
Yeah, what was your first impression?
Well, I'm not trying to say I'm smarter than, but it wasn't going to work. You can't put a children's museum on a 3-story building. Elevator, stairs, and you were going to have to park somewhere else and walk to it. It's what I said about people vote with their feet. It wouldn't have been long until the Children's Museum was not growing. So we said no. And then, I happened to be over there one day at the Lincoln place because I had a Lincoln car and a Lincoln SUV, and the rest of that story, as Paul Harvey would say, that's the rest of that story. So, and we put that deal together in less than a week. Because I think Melanie was chairman of the board at that time.
I think she may have been working with Cynthia on the whole fundraising, putting it together.
But she said, let's do it. She got some other people to come over here and look at it that day. But it was... And then subsequent to that, we bought this building behind you and so forth that I think you're using for warehouse or something.
And we lease a section of it to a pipe company for a little income.
And we tried to buy, what's her name's building there on the corner, and she wouldn't sell it.
Don Cheney's.
Tell me about when this place started coming to life. What was your impression of this place when you first started seeing it come to life here?
Well, it was fabulous. Well, one is another satellite to this. John Lomax had just gotten started, and this was his first big contract. And this was the first big thing he did. So I guess he would say this sort of got him started. And he's done quite well for himself. But it was an island of activity that needed some neighbors.
You're saying it's kind of on its own here for a little while?
It was.
Yeah.
It was. So, yeah.
Okay. Tell me about how. Tell me about how. I mean, I'm sure you have seen this place grow and develop over the years. What are your impressions of this place growing and developing with the programming and everything that it's had?
Well, I think it's been, fabulous. And obviously, I've been to a number of birthday parties and all over here. It warms your heart to come in here and see people. And it's not expensive. It's sort of like the baseball stadium. That's the great thing about the baseball stadium. What that is inexpensive family entertainment. It's not about baseball. It's just an excuse to be there. And then this facility, it gives people to be, and then when you look at what else has happened with LeBauer Park, I drove by there yesterday, and there were these kids out there playing in the water. I'm glad they got that now so they don't play in our fountains in the Center City Park, because we're always worried about somebody drowning in there because it's deeper than, but anyhow, it's all coming together. And the other thing is that I was at a meeting in our church just yesterday, and the preacher said, we had 4 people walk in off the street, so to speak, that had now just moved into these apartments around the street. Well, see, that's where it's happening. The community, Center City is really it's coming to life. And if you can get, I don't know how many we got here now, but you probably got 2,000 or 3,000 housing units down here. And before, when you just had Greensboro Court, even though Greensboro Court was exactly what the yuppies were looking for, exposed beams and brick and hardwood floors, old hardwood floors, that was the retail and the warehouse for Odell Hardware. Odell Hardware was one of Greensboro's original companies and had been there a long time. Another little side to that, my father, Odell Hardware had a retail store in there. And every Christmas, they had this big electric train, model train. It was about that big. It's about that big. And my daddy would go down there as a little boy and look at it. My dad's been dead for years. And our dad had been dead for years. And when they moved Odell Hardware from downtown to out here on Walker Avenue, he bought the train. And we have the train in our den. It's an American Flyer, and it's about that big. And there used to be the warehouse is where we put the Greensboro Court. It was a warehouse, and you could drive a train car in there and unload it. And so they made that into the atrium for the apartments. So the apartments are around here, and you got this big open space in the middle with a fountain and so forth in it. We hired a very famous architect, Glave, out of Boston, and he had done Fennel Court up there. Fennel Court has really very historic. You ever been to Boston? You in Boston? You ever seen? Okay. And so we did it right. We spent a lot of money, and those apartments are extremely nice. And a lot of, what's her name, who was the society writer for the Daily News, lived there. Roger did an apartment just for her because it had 3 bedrooms in it. But, and that's been, gosh, that's been 30 years ago. So it takes time it's not going to boom. Now, I would have to say, compared to Raleigh and Charlotte, we're still way behind. I'll tell you a little story about that, which doesn't have anything to do with the Children's Museum. I had just joined Security National Bank. Security National Bank was in the Jefferson Building. It was a bank that was in 6 cities, other cities in North Carolina. And I was just a teller. I wasn't in any of the management or anything, but they merged with the American Commercial Bank. And at the time, they did a joint merger agreement, rings to the BB&T, which just happened with SunTrust here. They did, for 10 years, they're going to have dual corporate headquarters. One in Greensboro, one in Charlotte. And they had same number of board members from Charlotte, same number of board members from Greensboro. 10 years to the day, the moving truck, they had the president of the bank here. The chairman of the bank was in Charlotte. 10 years to the day, the moving truck backed up to Tom Store's office here on Granville, and that was it. Today, Bank of America has about 12,000 employees downtown Charlotte. Bank of America doesn't have any employees in downtown Greensboro. So those are things that hurt. And a wise gentleman who I called on when I first ran for city council, George Perrin, who used to be in the Wachovia building at Centerpoint now. And he told me it's important that you pay attention to everything that happens to you, because it could have some big effect on you. Well, what if Mr. Bryan was the only person who voted against the merger because he was smart enough to see what was going to happen 10 years from now. Okay? He really was brilliant and a real visionary. So, but it's a tortoise and the hare story. We're the tortoise. Charlotte and Raleigh are the hare. I never will forget that back in the days when I was mayor, John Belk was mayor of Charlotte, and we worked up a deal where every 2 months, the mayors from the 10 largest cities in North Carolina would meet, and we'd meet in the various cities, and we'd exchange ideas and so forth. And the Lee Kynard show, which you're almost old enough to remember, Lee would have us out there, and we'd sit there for I'd do a show with him every month for half an hour. Can you imagine that to now? Everything now is headline news. And the only thing they put on there is who killed who last night. They don't talk about any community development stuff or something. But we were out there, and John Belk, who was a wonderful fellow, he was Belk Stores. He and his brother. Their daddy started it. And he said, we have a vision that we're going to have 80,000 people working in downtown Charlotte. Now, this was a long time ago. And he said, we're going to have buildings that are connected by walkways over the streets and so forth. That's exactly what they got. So I was sitting there saying, yeah, and you smoking something too, because, you know. And at that time, when I got out of being mayor, Charlotte was only about 20,000 population bigger than Greensboro. Hello. So those kind of things add up.
Going back to what you were saying earlier, what it sounds like is the going back to the Children's Museum is what it sounds like is this had a lot to do was a huge hand in the growth and development of the area.
What it is, it's like a puzzle, and this was a key spot, key point. It got a lot of young people who have young children to think about Center City, and so it is a puzzle. And I bet there's nobody on your board over 40.
A few.
Huh?
Just a few.
A few. So they still have an interest in Center City. You know, probably 10 years from now, this place will be a lot more vibrant because the stepping stones, the pieces of the puzzle are now together.
Well, it's certainly a lot more vibrant than it was 20 years ago, wouldn't you say?
But 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and this happened everywhere, not just Greensboro, but and as I've said, repeated, people vote with their feet. And the shopping center did away with most center cities. Now, when I was your age, everybody shopped in downtown Greensboro. And I remember as a little boy that on Sunday afternoon, my parents would come down here and we'd park and walk up and down the main street and shop in the windows. Hello. Times change. But in Greensboro, Raleigh was nothing compared to us. So, but this was the Children's Museum decision. You know, let me say this. I'm not a Presbyterian, but I believe in predestination. And if you look at it was predestined that this would work because Cynthia was coming up with the idea for the Children's Museum. Jerry Hyman gave them a building. I was standing over there getting my car serviced and said, that's where it needs to be. And then, thanks to Mr. Bryan, we had access to the money to buy it. Now, somebody meant for that to happen. I got to tell you one other story, and then I got to go. We did Bryan Park, first golf course. And one fall afternoon, we went out there they were going to deliver the golf course to the city, and I was mayor at the time. So we had the architect there, we had the contractor there, we had the head of Parks and Recreation, we had the city manager, we had me, and we had Mr. Bryan. And we were standing on the 18th tee, beautiful fall afternoon, and up drives this big white Cadillac convertible, and it was Russell Hall. Russell Hall's family owned all that land out there, thousands of acres. And they also owned Wysong Miles. They built textile machines. And we don't know why he didn't know we were there, and he wasn't invited, but he drove up, and he came over. And I said to Russell, just making conversations, you know, and I said, you know, Russell, someday we need to buy all that property across the street, keep people from across the road, keep people from developing housing and so forth in our park, because, you know, having it pure is important. He said, it's for sale. And I said, well, Russell, what do you want for it? He said, I'll sell it to you for $3,000 an acre. And I said, well, someday when and this is absolutely the truth, He said, I said, someday when we get some money, we're gonna need to buy that. Okay? Something tapped me on the shoulder. It was Mr. Bryan. He said, buy it. I said, Mr. Bryan, I don't have any money. He said, you do now. That afternoon, he sent us $1 million. That afternoon. We bought that 300 and some acres, which includes the soccer complex. Now, I say the Lord meant for us to have that land because who sent Russell Hall? And then the likelihood of having somebody stand with you that had the money and the willingness to give it, you know, I mean, that was meant to be. And if you look at, just last week we got a notice that Greensboro's been awarded one of the largest soccer tournaments in the country next summer. It's going to take 20,000 room nights. They're going to be here for 8 days because we got 21 soccer fields. See, that's the stepping stones, and if we didn't have that soccer complex, and so I've talked y'all to death.
I've loved hearing every
One
bit of
last.
this.
How proud does it make you feel to have a hand in this place?
Oh, well, it's, all of them. You walk around, my gracious. And here again, it's not me. Mr. Bryan is alive in this facility. Now, years down the road, nobody will know who Mr. Bryan is. I mean, that's whoever's running the foundation needs to remind people who he is. But that's why for instance, people say, well, let's name a road for you. Of course, we do have Bryan Boulevard. Tom Osborne and I did that. But people don't know who, when they ride out a street, or you ride down a road, or you across a bridge and you say it's the XYZ bridge, you don't know who it is. You don't know what they did. Here, this is a living, think of the thousands of people that will come through this facility and have some enjoyment. Now that's what it's all about. And so, he left his entire state to this community. How many people do that? And now, unfortunately, his children weren't too happy about that, but they got plenty of money from their mother's estate. So it makes you very proud. Now, I know I shouldn't say this on camera, but Susan Swartz got a little mad at me during this last campaign because we didn't contribute. But we felt that we'd done our thing because we put up almost $2 million to buy the building. And we'd moved on to other things. But it's a great facility. It's staying current. That's another thing. You got to keep it current. That's why I'm disappointed. I shouldn't say this. I don't want. I probably ought not say this but the carousel needs to be next door. Now it'll do great out there, but it needs to be next door because it's such a.
Why wasn't it? I'm just curious. Why wasn't it?
You'd have to ask somebody else on here. I didn't have anything to do with that.
Okay. I was just curious.
I got here right after that kind of decision had been made.
They said it had something to do with space. I don't know what.
That ain't true because Mr. Weaver we're going to give him enough property. He was going to give him more of this property going that way.